All right. Thank you all for making it such a vibrant evening because for the first time in my history of God knows 17, 18 years of working in the music industry, I'm actually in a very diverse panel for the first time, not only in terms of representation, but also in terms of genres. क्योंकि हमारी म्यूज़िक इंडस्ट्री में हमेशा से there's been a certain genres come and they dominate, and then you see artists sort of fly off, some artists sing, some artists float, but the new streaming scene, as we like to call, or the digital scene, or the creative industries, are something that have sort of opened up absolutely new purviews of music. Okay, like for example. Nadir ka music I've been following since Sikandar Ka Mandir, and I absolutely loved the song Khalil Saab because I kind of knew where it came from, right? And I was following what was happening in pop culture. And then there's Mr. Shortbox, जिनकी performances इतनी interesting होती हैं कि जो नहीं भी गया उनको भी पता होता है कितनी interesting होती है, just like me. And then I was watching Asteria's music last night, and she sort of quite creatively put it, if Lana Del Rey and Arctic Monkeys sort of merged together, it would be the kind of music that is there, and I've been following Rimsha's covers as well. So good that I'm still not a dinosaur in terms of music scene, but these guys are pushing boundaries, for sure. So I would just open the panel with a very open discussion. देखो ये अपनी जगह सब genre specialists हैं, who are somehow pushing the boundaries in terms of music, in terms of style, in terms of representation. Some are mixing genres, some are doing something unique visually, in terms of audio performance, in terms of how you sort of mix genres. But I'll start the panel with Nadir, because I've seen his music a lot, I've seen how it's evolved. To come up with an act like Dule Mian, and then sort of talk about the mundane, the sacred, the profane, all of it in a very sort of everyday way in your music, and still stick to rock. So what was the idea behind it?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I think like any expression, I believe even Dule Mian was a very, it was just me trying to be myself as much as possible. Even you mentioned Khalil Saab, it's satirical in what it is. एक तंज में मैं बात करने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ about well, politics and the whole Israel-Palestine issue and everything. So and how generally people look at it from a social media lens, from a news-based lens. And I think whatever I felt, I was trying to be as honest, and I think generally also I've grown up liking more thoughtful music. So yeah.
And that's very interesting. Thoughtful music is not a term that a lot of musicians would use 10 years back. In my journals, they were like, this is what we are doing, because the industry was established. There was a wave, even the time before Coke Studio, and then sort of Coke Studio comes and everyone knows that you have to be big on digital. But then we see an act like Asteria, for example, and I've been following her music, but I watched it quite closely last few nights when I had to moderate this session. And it's not just that you're trying to merge genres, you're also putting up an act, like a proper performance act. And it really isn't easy to do it in the digital domain these days, because you have an instant response in terms of reactions, right? And it's also sort of very hard to put it all together and become this one-person show online. So my question to you is, the boundaries that you were trying to push, do you feel the way you have put your music out, two parts, the way you have put it out and the kind of music you are putting out, do you think that the audience is sort of responding to those challenges that you are giving them?
I think they're definitely, so in particular with this last song I released, there has been a reaction, both positive and negative. I was telling a friend the other day how I feel like some people are really understanding. I'm getting a lot of messages being like, the way we really appreciate the way you're marketing yourself, we really appreciate kind of the authenticity with which you're putting yourself out there. But at the same time, because of, if you've seen my work and stuff, it's not every Pakistani's cup of tea.
Absolutely not.
And I have been getting hate messages, I have been getting controversy, people literally messaging me saying, please stop, why do you think you're do you think you're a white boy or something? So, but I think that's just part of the parcel of trying something new. People will have reactions, and in my opinion, if people are reacting to something, whether that's positive or negative, that means you're doing something which is impacting the psyche. And I think that's how I'm kind of feeling like it's meaningful work.
So technically you're staying true to your song Free Fall. So it's kind of a free fall into the whole domain and see how it's, because it's very interesting that you say that, because what I've seen with a lot of women artists I've interviewed, I think 6 to 7 months, I was chatting with Hadika Kayani and the kind of work she's done, and one thing that remains constant throughout is that these phases come when there are audiences sort of body shaming you, looking at you, even slut shaming for that matter. And then those who somehow sort of steer those waters, they then eventually find that ground, and I think that's something that your music, because the way you put it out there, it is put it out in a way that one can tell that, okay, she means what she's doing. It's not an act, it's not a clickbaity thing, because us journalists are very picky about it. That, oh, she's trying to aura farm here, or mine some attention here. Coming back to Mr. Shortbox, अच्छा, इनसे मेरा तारुफ बड़ा interesting है. 2 महीने पहले तक I was the culture editor for the Express Tribune. I worked there for good 13, 14 years. And my team, like Gen Zs, they're like, oh, are you going to the Mr. Shortbox thing? And there was this very sort of, you can say, a very digital robot and a dinosaur conversation. I'm like, okay, what the hell is Mr. Shortbox? And then they would tell me the anatomy of your entire performance, which was a story in its own, that how brilliant it is and how unique it is. आपका music सुने बगैर मुझे ये समझ में आ गया that you have sort of upset some people and you have motivated a lot of people, but whatever you were doing has sort of broken new ground. So was it all planned या तुक्का लग गया?
No, it was all planned. We exactly knew how to, rage bait people और किस तरह से लोगों को, controversy में लेके आना है. And this is something I announced before I started making reels or Instagram पे ये करना है, वो करना है. I put up this reel. It got millions and millions of views, and I was like, IMF ने, it was a joke, it had written के satire है, but IMF ने allow कर दिया कि clubs and partying है ये वो. लोग पागल हो गए कि ये कैसे हो रहा है, क्या हो रहा है, और मतलब पैसे कहाँ से आ रहे हैं, और corruption हो रही है ये वो. But it blew up, and it blew up because people really want that. So when you say there are people who, are not happy with it, and there are people who are really happy with it, I have to cater to the people who are happy with it, and which is the future. You've got a demographic which is 60% of your population is below 30. These are the people who want a better Pakistan, who want a more open Pakistan, because ज़िया वाली generation वैसे भी जाने वाली है, तो हम तकलीफ में क्यों रहे अपने आप को, right?
बस वही वाली बात है ना कि असल में I think it's a very interesting reference, Ziaul Haq and the Pakistani music industry. Because Salman Ahmed, the great Salman Ahmed from Junoon in his non-Junooni days, अब तो सियासी हो गए. But वो सियासी तो खैर हमेशा से थे. He always had this theory that rock music or can beat extremism. उन्होंने पूरी किताब भी लिख डाली. वो अलग बात है कि उसको खास सर पैर नहीं था with all due, but great musician. All musicians should not write books. But that goes beyond the point. But ये एक बड़ा interesting है that we have this figure in history जिसको हर artist आके, like you through EDM, through electronic music, you're trying, there's a reference point कि हमें उस चीज़ को तो resist करना ही है.
See, there's this principle by this, one of my favorite academics called Todorova, right? So Todorova talks about the otherization principle, which is कि हमेशा ना there is always the other. मुसलमान है तो उसका दुश्मन हिंदू है, वेस्टर्न यूरोपियन है तो ईस्टर्न यूरोपियन है, यूरोपियन है तो मिडल ईस्टर्न है, ओरिएंटल, ऑक्सीडेंटल. So of course, if we are to ban and if we are to bring in this entire new wave of progressive liberal values which are economically beneficial to us, हमें एक villain तो चाहिए ना, and who better than the biggest villain in this country's history?
Yeah, and for a moment I thought I was in my culture theory class at Habib University with all the references. But good, it's a very different batch. It's a well-read batch. Rimsha, मैंने आपके गाने देखे mostly Kashan भाई के साथ, the covers that you were doing, right? And I'm glad there was someone who also recognized me in this new panels, like, oh, I've seen your work. तो मैंने कहा, still not a dinosaur. but still. But you know, you're singing across genres. ठीक है, एक मुख्तलिफ genres, एक मुख्तलिफ range में आप गा रही हैं. And you know, आपको लगता है कि इंटरनेट के आने के बाद women who particularly want to break new ground as vocalists, ठीक है, कि जो गायकी में, because जब हमारे पास एक सोलो आर्टिस्ट आ जाती है, सिंगर आ जाता है, तो देयर इज़ द सिंगिंग, देयर इज़ द पैकेज, देयर इज़ सो मच दैट दे हैव टू लुक एट. तो इंटरनेट एज में आपको क्या लगता है एज अ सिंगर इन पाकिस्तान आपके लिए ब्रेकआउट करना आसान हो गया है विद सो मच टेक्नोलॉजी एंड सो मच सोशल मीडिया ट्रैक्शन, या एक और ही आप समझे एक नया क्लाउड बन गया जिसमें चीज़ें कंफ्यूज हो रही हैं?
I think it can be a bit of both.
Okay.
But so recently, before that, like I've done covers with Kashan and I've done my covers with other people. I've worked with other bands. But very recently, it was very recent for me to actually come out and put my own music out there and be on my individual journey. So released the first single a few months ago. I feel that internet age has made music more accessible because we did really well on YouTube and on Spotify. Even on Instagram, the song was in the top 10 at one point. So it has made it easy also, but it has also made it challenging in ways because the space is also very crowded. But when it comes to Pakistan, the market still, in terms of female vocalists, is not very saturated. So there is space, I feel.
Yeah, and I think the stuff like Pakistan Idol is also sort of exploring new kind of talent. I mean, I have reservations over certain kind of music being played, certain kind of music not allowed. There's their own way of looking at catalogs, and I've spoken to artists who wanted to sing something, but they were made to sing something else. But we look at the positives, कि there's a space जहाँ पे artists आए. अच्छा Nadir, when Sikandar Ka Mandir started, you were always, you know, this offbeat kind of band. मतलब बेशक आप उर्दू ज़बान में गाते थे या उर्दू ज़बान में लिखते, एक वेस्टर्न तरह का आपका म्यूज़िक था, एक कल्ट ऑल्ट रॉक टाइप चीज़ आपकी एक फॉलोइंग बनती थी, कोई पॉप रॉक कहता था, कोई ऑल्ट रॉक कहता था. अकॉर्डिंग टू माई फ्रेंड दे डू जोन रॉक. मैंने कहा व्हाट द हेल इज जोन रॉक? कहते हैं दे डू रॉक इन माई ओन जोन. So that is how I identified with Sikandar Ka Mandir. But from Sikandar Ka Mandir to Dule Mian, right? The mediums have changed. No music channels. Music जैसे उस वक्त भी नहीं थे, but वो ख़त्म हो रहे थे when Sikandar Ka Mandir was sort of taking over the scene. Do you think now the creative economy, or जिसको हम platform economy कहते हैं, I know you guys were never there for the numbers or the dollars as digital marketers like to say now, but how do you see the landscape changing in terms of opportunities? Do you think for an indie act like you, who always chose to be indie, एक तो होते हैं ना who want to be mainstream but they end up being indie, you were always indie कि भाई हमें यही करना है. Do you think it was much easier to be indie before, or is it easier to be indie now, and has the impact changed?
I think now, specifically in the time of TikTok and Instagram, it's become a lot easier to form little cults for yourself. I think I've been able to be a lot more direct with my audiences and figure out the kind of audiences I have. Not that I do any R&D before making a song, but ek लिहाज से मुझे I have like, it's easier now to curate or make the kind of things that I do. Because ek to obviously, like, yes, being in this scene for a while makes me understand who is going to be listening. But also for newer people, like, I think there are, because like the age of Spotify where all music is available everywhere all at once, there are kids who don't want to listen to what's new and trending. You know, they want to listen to older stuff, or they want to, you know, find like the weird indie acts. So I think it's no longer like the MTV phase where, you know, things were a lot more curated. You know, it's like people make their own curated playlists, and you know, so I think it's definitely much easier for newer musicians now to go and make their own like little followings and cults, and you know, do their thing.
And it's interesting you mentioned MTV, which is officially dead now. You know, हमारे पास तो MTV कोई late 2000s में इंतकाल हो गया था MTV का, but now it's formally dead. So that era where people saw the music released, the whole concept of the music video where it came from has now also ended. And with sort of, I think it's a very important point to anchor at a place like Disrupt. You know, we're kind of looking at how tech sort of engages with community, how markets are disrupted, how genres are disrupted. MTV is dead, and we are sitting on a music panel, and none of us are relying on MTV to put our music out there. कि अभी अगर आप ज़रा पीछे चले जाएं, like the other day I was speaking to Shuja Haider and Ahmed Jahan Zeb, and they were all like, you know, अगर music channels होते ना, so you know, and I respect that because they saw that space that had it been. But Asteria का music अगर मैं देखूं, मुझे तो लगता है कि अगर आपका music TV channels पे चलता तो आपको तो फौरन ही वो उतार देते TV channels से कि भाई ये क्या हो रहा है TV channels पे. So don't you think it's also an opportunity to break social barriers that you don't have the broadcast conventional TV anymore, and you can sort of make your own audience, curate your own performance? Do you think that's a...
Yeah, I think it's definitely good because the kind of death of that musical monoculture gives a lot of more agency for people who are doing something different to arise. And you know, what I feel like is often like, I mean, how the Pakistani industry used to work was it was like one genre, you know, one platform. So people would kind of almost have to conform to that platform to get somewhere, which is still kind of true.
Yeah.
But because of social media, as you said it, if your algorithm, you know, if you hit the algorithm in the right way, you can reach so many people, not only within Pakistan, but across the globe if you like find the right thing to say. So I think it's great in that way because for sure, you know, there are probably people who are feeling the desire to see the same kind of thing that I'm putting out, and now I can find those people.
Mm-hmm.
So
and do you think that, like you said, they have the desire to see your kind of performances and your kind of artists in your fan engagement? I would say, do you feel that there are young women or men, you know, who are looking at your performances, however they identify, and they're like, okay, you know, this was something that's missing, and this is something that we would like to do. So do you get any of those fan interactions?
I think, yeah, primarily my fan base is people who are kind of younger and they don't really fit the mold, is what I would say. I've noticed that about people who listen to my music, whether that's, I just in general, people who don't fit the mold, I think they have an appreciation for what I do because I think I don't really fit the mold. So they see that in me and they feel like they connect.
And it's interesting because Nadir's point and your point sort of connects that you have now your own digital tribes, as we like to call in internet studies, that they're small digital tribes who sometimes interact with each other globally, sometimes locally, and they form their own identities online. And I think one thing that sort of backfires also is the chance to be anonymous on the internet. Like a woman who might not be allowed to engage with your content on social media can engage as someone else and then, you know, truly say what she wants to say about your music. And now coming to Mr. Shortbox, Hamza, as your name has been revealed, you know, you create a performance space for people. You know, so what you offer is an experience. Like Baki Sabka ya kuch, you know, you can just stay home and see it. For Mr. Shortbox, you have to go there. Like the real thing is the live thing. So how do you see, because EDM has been there for a while, like EDM picked up around 16 years back in Pakistan, and then it hit a peak, it sort of peak, and then bedroom pop and all those genres sort of came in. But in terms of bringing so many people together of different genders, of different ages, and letting them totally unravel themselves, right? As you like to say, as the audiences have told me. Do you think that some true change, as you said that you had something in mind, is really happening? या वो stereotype सही है कि वो देखो ये लोग तो जाते हैं बस यूं करके वापस आ जाते हैं लड़के लड़कियां मिलके. Do you think that change is somewhere happening, and if yes, then how do you see it?
I love this question because amazing. I really would like you to repeat a couple of parts of it. आपने Asteria को बोला टीवी वाली बात, आपने मुझे पैनल पे बिठा दिया, यही बड़ी बात है because you know this is very counter culture, right? तो जहाँ तक बात है लाइव परफॉर्मेंसेस की, तो वो जो शोज हैं, जो शॉर्ट बॉक्स शोज हो रहे हैं या जस्ट बी के अब शोज हो रहे हैं, they need to be the biggest productions in Pakistan because वो काम इतना टेढ़ा है according to the morality that we have here कि अगर वो बहुत ग्लैमरस और बड़ी चीज़ नहीं है, then people will try to shut that down, and if it's too big, then the narrative changes कि आप पाकिस्तान की भलाई नहीं चाहते इसलिए आप ये होने नहीं दे, right? But when it comes to
लेकिन अगर आप बहुत ज़्यादा चेंज कर ले, then they need a share of that.
That's fine. सर आप मरवाएंगे?
नहीं, मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ ना, मतलब
बट जब मैंने स्टार्ट किया था, when I was starting out with electronic music, because आपकी वाली बात EDM पहले आया, we're not doing EDM, we're doing more like house and techno and these other genres. But जब मैंने स्टार्ट किया था तो मुझे सबने ही बोला था कि भाईजान ये मुल्क वो नहीं है, आप ख्वाब देख रहे हैं, कुछ होने वाला नहीं है. And I was like, let me at least try this out. What if I succeed in this? तो मैंने कहा था मुझे 10 साल चाहिए to do something. 3 साल हो चुके हैं और कराची का ऐसा कोई वीकेंड नहीं है जहाँ पे कोई पार्टी, कोई इवेंट ना कुछ इस तरह हो रहा हो. यू नाउ हैव स्पेसेस एंड आई विल गेट टू व्हाई वी डूइंग दिस, व्हाई वी नीड दीज पब्लिक स्पेसेस. मैंने कल वी हैव अ रिकॉर्ड लेबल जस्ट बी, उस पे वी अलाउ म्यूजिक प्रोड्यूसर्स के कोई भी.
व्हाट्स द नेम?
जस्ट बी. हाँ, तो you can release music and there is a lot of talented producers from all over the country that are doing that. So I'm having a show on New Year's. तो उसका एक जो one of the regulars that releases music on that is called Pac-Man in Multan. मैंने कल एक स्नैप देखी, मैंने कहा ये कहाँ पे है, तो बोलता है मुल्तान. एंड आई सी अ स्नैप एंड देयर इज लाइक अराउंड 4-5,000 लड़की लड़कियाँ नाच रहे, पार्टी चल रही है, इट्स लाइक एन एंटायर रेव. एंड आई वाज लाइक इन मुल्तान? इज लाइक यस. So this is kind of spreading out slowly and slowly, and it's all because of the social media thing and also because of the messaging that's been going on. So the reason why I do this, and particularly this is the most important point, is this isn't about glamour, this isn't about parties, this isn't about music particularly, this is about the politics behind it. कि पाकिस्तान जैसी जगह जो होती है ना, it's a very shame based country. कि यहाँ पे लोग इसलिए अच्छे नहीं होते, तमीज़ के दायरे में इसलिए नहीं होते क्योंकि ये सही चीज़ है, इसलिए होते हैं क्योंकि people are watching, people are looking at you. So चटर्जी जैसे बोलते हैं कि हमारी जो पोस्ट कॉलोनियल पूरा एक apparatus है वो कभी गया नहीं है, कि वो गोरे चले गए लेकिन उनका सिस्टम जो उनको विक्टोरियन कंजर्वेटिवनेस थी वो अभी तक हमारे पास है. जिस दुनिया के हिस्से में कथक और देवागिरी और ये सारी डांसेस एंड देयर इज सो मच, तो how is this part of the country, world conservative? And in order to remove this shame, I was like, which is the most controversial thing that you can bring in? Art, music, the mixing of sexes, party. And when you bring that here, when people experience that and they see कि यार मैंने पूरी ज़िंदगी अजीब से उसमें गुजारी है कि इसमें गलत क्या है, why exactly is this wrong, then they start thinking about other stuff as well. Then they start thinking of going into other arts, then they start thinking of public spaces, they start thinking about how our society has worked, how we've been brought up, and that change is very visible. I don't need to talk about it.
Yeah, and your entire answer reminds me of when this satirist Mustafa Chaudhry was on my podcast. And because he mimics a lot of politicians and all, तो मैंने कहा मुस्तफ़ा भाई आप सबका मजाक उड़ाते हैं, ये बताएं आप किस पॉलिटिकल पार्टी को सपोर्ट करते हैं. He said dance party. And I think it was the smartest way to get away from the question. He's like I support dance party, right? So Rimsha, आपने original music की बात की, that you've released original music, or I came at a time when I started journalism at a time late 2007 and 8 जब EMI was coming back. हमें नहीं पता था कि EMI का आना इतने सारे प्रॉब्लम्स और पॉसिबिलिटीज़ क्रिएट कर देगा. आई वोंट गो इनटू द डिटेल्स, बट अब दुनिया में जैसे बड़ा कहा जा रहा है कि जी कन्वेंशनल रिकॉर्ड लेबल इज़ डेड, एंड देन देयर डिजिटल रिकॉर्ड लेबल्स, और लोग सेल्फ रिलीजेस कर रहे हैं अपने म्यूज़िक की, डायरेक्ट डील्स करके अपने म्यूज़िक की कर रहे हैं, एंड इट्स ऑल पॉसिबल बिकॉज ऑफ द इंटरनेट, बिकॉज ऑफ द क्रिएटिव इकोनॉमी. तो मुझे ये बताइए, एज एन आर्टिस्ट हु इज़ ट्राइंग टू मेक अ नेम फॉर हर सेल्फ, हु हैज़ लाइक यू सेड कि मुख्तलिफ आर्टिस्ट के साथ आपके टॉप 10 पे भी गाने गए हैं, कवर्स हैं, देन यू हैव ओरिजिनल्स दैट यू आर ऑल्सो रिलीजिंग. जब आप अपना एल्बम या अपना कंपाइलेशन को कभी सोचते हैं कि अच्छा मुझे इसको मोनेटाइज करना है, एंड नॉट जस्ट सोशल मीडिया पेजेस, कि अब मुझे इससे पैसे कमाने, सो व्हाट आर द थिंग्स दैट कम टू योर माइंड, व्हाट आर द प्रॉब्लम्स दैट कम टू योर माइंड, कि मेरे पास गायकी है, मेरे पास धुन है, मेरे पास सुर है, मेरे पास एक मुकम्मल गाना है, पर मैं पैसे कैसे कमाऊंगी? सो हाउ डू यू आंसर दिस क्वेश्चन एट द इंटरनेट एज? और दूसरा, व्हाट आर the challenges that you are facing, because I'm sure this would provide a lot of people a chance to introspect.
That's a very nice question, but also, okay. So it is challenging. It is quite challenging because now, for example, if you put your music out there, and we were just having this conversation yesterday at the studio with Kashan. He's the one person who produced my first single. So now if you put, for example, if you put the song out there on Spotify, and to monetize that, you technically get paid per stream. And what you get paid is $0.002 USD per stream. And if you, until and unless you hit a jackpot when it comes to the number of times that your song is played across the world, you will not be making a significant amount. When it comes to YouTube, you're not paid for the views, you're paid for the subscribers that you have. So deep down, it kind of comes down to the tours, how they pay you, how well they pay you, live performances. That's one of the biggest money-generating bit that musicians have got going on. So a lot of musicians would make a lot of money based off of the live sets that you would be playing, in different places. So there's that, which kind of limits, because the digital space, like you said, and like everybody is saying, has become saturated in the sense that there's a lot that's going on that's out there, and all the digital platforms don't pay you. A lot of people think that, if somebody has a certain number of followers or a certain number of views on the internet, is going to be paying them a lot of money. It doesn't. Instagram isn't really monetized to that way yet. So there is that limitation. So it has become challenging, because in the olden times you could sell albums, you could sell your CDs, and that's something that would make you money. But it has really become challenging now.
So, that's the other side. We were looking at all the possibilities.
Yeah.
And I'll quickly go to Stiara and then come back to Nadir to close the session and open for any question and answer. So, Stiara, your music, it can be considered desi and it can be considered global at the same time. That's, I think, the charm of a mixed genre blend that you are offering. So, in the digital sphere, do you ever feel that your music is able to sort of pass through the typical desi audience, and you're sort of finding an audience in people from other cultures and countries who appreciate the genre of music that you are trying to produce? Like, because the genres are global, right? And you sing in English most of the stuff that you release. So do you think that gives you an edge in terms of digital mileage, or do you think that works against you, and it's the algorithms that sort of plug you in, it's coming out of Pakistan, it's a brown girl, it has to be this way. Do you get that advantage, or you really don't get that advantage?
So that's really interesting that you asked that, because that's something I'm working on, especially with my current song which I've just released, and the next few ones. I'm primarily trying to target audiences outside of Pakistan, and I have been noticing and have been facing an issue where it's like, the second I put the word Pakistani in my caption, it will get so many more views. And yes, I do feel like right now the algorithm is boxing me in, and I'm trying to work on ways to break out of that, because actually my intention with my music is to break it out of Pakistan, because I think that is primarily where somebody with my kind of vibe would fit in, actually. Like, I do think Pakistan is also, there are genuinely people who appreciate it here, but I think my music and my sound has the potential to go abroad as well.
Absolutely. That was my first impression when I listened to your music properly, that there is this artist who, can sort of figure out the web of algorithms and genres, there is this chance, there is this chance that can be tapped. So Nadir, to bring this to a close, we have a minute and a half, and then we'll take any questions if there are from the audience. With Dule Mia, I think the language is very important. मैं हमेशा जब आपकी शायरी सुनता हूँ, क्योंकि मैं खुद लिटरेचर बफ हूँ, और मुझे हमेशा ये अच्छा लगता है कि जो बैंड्स वेस्टर्न जॉनरा में काम कर रहे हैं, लेकिन they somehow sort of bring it to the language to anchor in. So, was it always a conscious attempt to choose Urdu poetry, and was it because what you wanted to say could never be said in a different language? Yeah, you wanted to just connect with the audience here.
Thank you, सबसे पहले. But I think more than anything, I wanted to make music that I wanted to listen to as a kid, you know, and I feel like the language that I use is like the language I used to speak in. So I just wanted to try to make something that I would resonate with, which is why maybe मैं इतनी R&D नहीं करता अपने गानों पे. But yeah, I think that's the answer that I can give.
Yeah. All right. Do we have time for questions? Okay, we don't have time for questions. हमने खुद ही इतने सवाल पूछ के जवाब दे दिए कि अब आप लोग अपने आप से सवाल पूछें कि आपने इधर क्या सीखा. So thank you everyone. Thank you Nadir. Thank you Mr. Shortbox / Hamza. Shortbox का असली नाम हमजा है. Asteria, Rimsha. Thank you so much. And inshallah see you in the better days of music industry जो कभी नहीं आने वाले. Okay, bye.